Everything that we do, we create.
All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, grand risings, family. Whatever time it is for you, we welcome you. And I hope that you welcome us. Seems like it was just yesterday that we were chatting, Darius, provoking thought and seeking truth.
Yes. It always
So
seems like just yesterday, though.
it, listen, time is flying. Time is breaking down and it's flying. So keep your eye on the clock.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah. And if you end up being late all the time, know that the time is flying and you just need to add like 15 or 20 more minutes to your session or your event, your destination. So how you doing today, Darius?
I am doing phenomenal.
Good.
Doing well. I'm really in a good space, and things are going well. And I'm excited about just having this opportunity, as always, to spend some time with you. So I always get so much out of it. So I hope you guys watching get a lot out of this too, because I do. Even though I always do. So it's always a pleasure. I'm doing well.
Good.
How are you?
You know what? I'm still on that even keel. I'm living my life with equanimity.
Ooh. Well, let's talk about let's tie some things together for people. Let's make some connections. And let's talk about difference. Let's talk about the 5 Ds of difference.
The 5 Ds.
Let's go into that. So I want you to share that with us, because I think just talking about it will really be enlightening for a lot of people, and understanding what's going on, why things are going on, and what they're doing maybe unconsciously when things go
on. Ooh. All right. But only, Darius.
Huh?
Only if you help me.
Oh, I'm here. I got your back.
Right. You know why?
I'm here to help with the heavy lift.
Wait, I got this out of my garage.
Okay.
All right. And it dates back to the Southwest Communication Resources Diversity Forum that I went to in 1994.
Okay.
So I may have lost some of the words to express.
I'm here for it.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you, bro.
All right.
So managing our differences. What do we do? This is shadow work.
Yep.
All right. It's not for you to look at other people and say, oh, they do that.
This is internal.
This is internal. This is pourvu. All right. So the first question that I want to ask is, why are some people so reluctant to discuss issues of diversity or differences, race, culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, religion, spirituality, and age?
That's everything we are. If you just think about that whole list that you read off is just that's the human race. That's individual human beings on this planet. All right.
So when Allison does a diversity inclusion class, she can say, all right, I'm walking, talking diversity.
Yep. Yep, she is.
Watch me.
Yep.
Watch your colleagues.
Mhm.
Notice the differences. And that's your diversity class. I have nothing else to say. Okay. So, but why is it?
It's a very good question.
And so, number one thing, it's emotionally uncomfortable.
So can I add a asterisk to that? Why is it
Please.
uncomfortable?
I think we talked a little bit about that last episode.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's out of your cognitive range.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to grasp that there's a different perspective or there's a different way because we've been so conditioned to conform.
That's it.
Anything outside of conforming is abnormal.
Yep. And becomes uncomfortable to discuss.
Stigmatized.
Yep.
All right. The other piece that is so unique, the next piece that's so unique is the language and
Mm.
the ambiguity of our English language. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it? Rod Hayes said one day on one of his sessions, I like Rod Hayes on YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
He dropped some gems, but he
Yes, he
said
does.
that the pygmies invented the English language so that they could talk to the colonizers. but but our English language is so ambiguous. All
It is.
right. It's confusing. There are 10 different meanings to maybe one word.
Yep.
So how do we know what definition someone is using for a word,
True. Let me give
right?
you let me share this with you, right? Just on that.
Okay.
Because I was I was talking to DJ yesterday.
Mhm.
I picked him up after football practice. And for those who don't know, DJ is my youngest son. And I said, how are you doing? I said, how you feeling? And he said, what do you mean? And I was stunned for a second, Denise. He
Good for
actually
him.
said, he said, what do you mean? Like, I was like, what do you mean what I mean? Like, how are you feeling? Like, how do you feel? And I thought about that when you said that because certain words and phrases have so many different meanings. He was trying to understand what meaning I was I was thinking when I asked him how was he feeling. Like he
See
didn't
that?
know if I was asking how was he feeling, like physically, like mentally, about what just happened at practice or what. So you're very correct when you say that it can be confusing. And I just thought that was interesting. So I had to be very specific in my questioning when I was greeting him when I picked him up from practice yesterday. So that is very true. And sometimes we overlook it, but it happens on a regular basis.
Well, it does. You asked him an open-ended question, so he could have responded any way
That's true
that he,
too.
that he wanted, but he wanted to know, what do you mean? What
Right.
do you mean? Why are you asking me this?
Yep. Yep. So the ambiguity of it all was I don't really know what you're asking, so I don't really know how to answer that question.
Exactly.
And it was
And
something that most people would think was a very basic question, but it's really not. It really
yeah,
wasn't in how he took it.
that's for real.
Yeah.
It's for real. So, but then there's another piece to the language. Think about people that speak English as a second language,
Mm-hmm.
all right, and discussing what are issues of difference for them and how they feel in this world.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's a couple of things that happen with the English language. All right, the English language does not always have words that are equivalent to a word or a meaning or an event that happens in another culture,
True.
right? So we may have a word for it, like real interesting when I'm doing a study on child abuse, we're trying to actually go from culture to culture to find out what that meant. And in the Southeast Asian culture, they don't have a word or a concept, a way of saying child abuse. So they had no idea what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes when you speak to people that speak Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like what they're saying is so rich and so full of feeling, so full of emotion, so full of affect,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the words that they're using don't nearly represent some of the I call them bland words that we use to describe affect.
Yes.
Okay. Then the other piece to that is that people who speak English as a second language will take in whatever it is you're saying, translate it to their language to get an answer or a response, and then have to transfer it back to English in order to communicate with you. That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. And it doesn't always line up.
No,
No. Some
no.
causes
So,
confusion.
yeah. So, I mean, when we're unaccustomed to grappling with the complexities of diversity, sometimes we don't know how to do that. You know, it's like, what word do I use to describe this? How do I say this in a way that is not going to be offensive?
Mm.
You know, and some people just, at any rate, let's talk about the kind of things that we do to manage all of these feelings that come up, the tension, the discomfort, and the threat.
Mm-hmm.
That just communicating or talking talking about differences can create.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good.
And all the way back from 1994, I still got this old stuff, right? I call it the 5 Ds of difference. All right. And what we're going to talk about is how we manage differences from the perspective of strategy,
Mm-hmm.
manifestations, and possible results or
Okay.
outcomes. Okay. And this is just an overview. I'm going to ask my cousin to fill in the blanks,
All right. Go for it.
if he would. All right. There's 5 Ds, 5 things that you can do when you encounter differences. You distance,
Mm-hmm.
you deny, you become defensive, you devalue, or you can opt for discovery. He says. All right. First one, distancing. What's the strategy? To maintain separation from the difference. It's like, oh, that person is different from me. They look different, they talk different, they speak different, they think different. I'm going to stay away.
Mm.
All
Separation.
right. Separation. All right. So,
Separation.
what does that look like? It looks like physical avoidance,
Mm-hmm.
even emotional avoidance,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual avoidance, and we could name a whole host of those, right?
Right.
And in the process, what happens when you avoid is that you tend then to maintain contact with a homogeneous environment, right? Or your same social networks where you feel comfortable.
Right.
You don't stray,
Nope.
right? The other manifestation is pity, feeling so very sorry for another individual or another population or another ethnic group or a gender or even the age.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then the other piece, which I sometimes do, I'm going to acknowledge that, is a sense of cognitive fascination.
Oh, okay.
What is that?
Right.
Okay. I become I think people are fascinating.
Oh, me too.
You
Oh,
know,
most
I
definitely.
love them for that, because it's like, look at how different people are, right?
Yeah.
So, but the possible outcomes then for doing that are that it prevents an authentic, open, honest level of communication,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So with distancing, um, we still kind of watching from afar. Like, we put this space between us, so I really don't have to be confronted, but I'm still kind of lurking there a little bit, and I'm watching. But one of the other things that happens is when we have these differences and we use this as a way of managing how we feel about the difference. When we use that distancing, what happens psychologically and what happens in our head is that we create stories. So we create a story in our head to justify the distance. We create a story about that person or what they think or what they look like or whatever it is. We create this story in our head so that we can feel comfortable in the decision that we've made to create the distance from that person because of why, well, not because, but justify why we've created that distance. So that person is different because of whatever it is. So in our head, we have to create a story so that we can feel comfortable in our own skin to be doing the things that we're doing to move them away from us, as opposed to really trying to understand and see how those differences are really minute compared to the similarities that we have. So with
Okay.
distancing, sometimes we create a story to say, this is why I'm staying away from that particular person. And if we step back with a clear mind and really think about it, that reasoning doesn't
Don't
even,
step on my toes.
yeah. Okay.
I know where you're going with that. So,
we
but
so
you're
with that, we create stories. Let's put it that way. We mentally
okay.
create our own stories to justify the distancing.
Based upon perceiving,
Mm-hmm.
all
Yes.
right, our interactions are based upon well, it increases the likelihood that we will perceive based upon our beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we'll begin to interact with that other individual based upon stereotypes.
Right.
Okay, so we pull from that way of being where we put things in categories,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we put them in types, and then we put value to those types, and that's how biases are created.
Yep.
You know, all because of our perception, all because of the story or the narrative that we've
Mm-hmm.
created. So what we're essentially doing is writing a narrative for that which is different. We're
Yes.
defining it without really knowing.
Yes.
Okay. And so When you deal with another individual that way, you've created this narrative that's usually based upon stereotypes. It has a dehumanizing effect on that individual.
Yep.
They become alienated or even misunderstood.
And they have this feeling of, you don't even know me.
Yeah. Yeah, who you be? You don't know nothing about me.
Right.
All right. Number two strategy that we use when we encounter differences in order to manage the discomfort is that we deny. Denial. We minimize the existence or the significance of differences.
Yep.
So and what that looks like is we assume a colorblind posture or a difference blind posture. It's like, I don't see a Black woman. I see a human being.
That's that whole, I don't see color.
Exactly. Then we see a selective attention to similarities.
Say that again.
Yeah. A selective attention to similarities. All right. Without even considering the differences. That leaves me out of the picture. But I don't want to talk about possible results yet, but there's such a need for conformity and sameness. All right, that's conditioned based upon the patriarchal way of understanding the world, right? And then disagreements and conflict are actively avoided, right? Why are we fighting? We're the same. You know, and there's no, if you just agree with me, conform, be like me. Right. I see you like me. All right. What are the possible results then? The possible result, number one, is that it increases the feelings of invisibility. All right. So I'm a sister. You don't see that. Does that mean that I'm invisible? Right.
Well, that part of you is invisible.
That part of me is invisible. And so I come into a room for a meeting and I have a different perspective on things, right? Is my perspective going to be ignored? That's ignoring a part of me, because your expectation of me is to conform.
Right.
It's groupthink. So that means that you don't learn anything about me and my visibility, nor do you learn anything about people of color. Not that I'm representing all people of color, but you don't grow.
Right.
You don't expand your territory. So it just increases the chance that the concerns and needs of people that are different would be neglected and overlooked.
Yeah. And the denial, really, for those that are being treated differently because of their differences, they're different from maybe that group that they're a part of right now. Those people that feel different, the denial of who they really are sometimes hurts just as bad, if not more, than you just outright telling them what you don't like.
Yeah.
Right. So we deny the truth about who they are, and we deny the recognition of who they are, but not knowing that that is what so many people speak out about, and as a pain point for them, because acknowledge me for who I am, but don't treat me as if that's not valuable. Right. So we treat people differently, because you talked about that value that we add, when we put them in categories and things, then we add value. Don't devalue who I am because I am different, or you see me as different, and don't deny that I am. I'm okay with you saying that I'm different. Just don't deny that, but don't treat me as I should be outcast because of it.
Exactly.
So that's another thing that that happens as a result of using this technique to deal with our differences, the denial technique to deal with our differences.
Yep. It's like there is no difference.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, it's a
Embrace it,
stance
learn from it.
that a lot of liberals take.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we
So,
get bamboozled sometimes because of that. Just saying.
well, yep.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. But
I'm
that
just saying.
leads into the fourth. I mean, the third defensiveness. The third D, defensiveness.
Yes.
What's the strategy? You adopt a stance that I have no problem with differences. All right, false. So how does that look? People become very defensive in their declaration of not having any prejudice or stereotypes. And so that's a misnomer, because we all have prejudice or stereotypes, right? It's just so conditioned into us. And as well, we have things that are called the value orientations, where we might value something more than the other person would.
Right.
So it just to say I have no problem with differences, we all do. Okay. The other thing that happens is identification or over involvement with an individual, right? And then you have blurred interpersonal boundaries with oppressed groups.
All right, so let me add this. So for the young people watching, that's when they say you're doing too much. You're doing too much. You're overboard with everything. It's doing too much. When you try to overcompensate sometimes, so that you can come back and say, and see the defensive part comes in, because then you come back and say, but I'm not. I'm trying to be inclusive in this, and I'm trying to show you that I'm not this or that or whatever the difference may be. So we go overboard with that, and then we defend our stance, or that person may defend their stance by doing that to try to prove that they're not.
Yeah, it's like a reaction formation.
Right. And it's unnecessary if there is no reason to acknowledge. If the difference doesn't matter, then there's no reason to do all of that.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that another person then is trying to overrule another person. In other words, tell them what they should be doing.
Or not just what they should be doing, but when there's a difference. So let's say race, right? You have someone that is not Black dealing with someone who is Black, and they're doing all of this stuff to try to show that the person being Black doesn't bother them. And so I'm going overboard with it. I mean, I'm being very going out of my way. That person's going out of their way to try to prove. And it's just like, you don't have to do all that sometimes. Like, you're doing too much. And then they defend it by saying, I'm not racist because I did all of these things. So that's where the defensive part comes in, where they're defending their stance of doing extra, or what most people may consider to be extra. They're defending that because they're trying to show that that's how they manage the difference between one person being Black, one person being white, and the white person's trying to make sure that the Black person doesn't feel like an outcast or feel any different. So they do this extra stuff to try to make them feel like they are included.
Okay, so that's another manifestation where it's almost central to one's sense of self, that they're being caring, altruistic, and they hold values of equality that are not necessarily sincere,
right?
But a reaction to proving that they have no problem with differences.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all right, I got that. But then there's another piece that's like blurred interpersonal boundaries. What, you're smiling? What might that look like to you in terms of a manifestation?
And I think that kind of ties into what we're just saying. It's like we try not to. We have boundaries, right? And we all should have boundaries within everything, right? But you have those when there's a difference that's in the center of a relationship or the center of an event that's going on, or whatever the case may be within people. Those boundaries are, what's the word I want to use? The boundaries are ignored. So there's still some boundaries. So if you're a woman and there's a man that you're dealing with, let's say it's in the workplace, right? The man feeling like he can touch your hair, or the man feeling like he can comment on your intimate apparel, if that's something, or whatever the case may be, that boundary has been, you overstep that boundary. So that boundary is being defiled because I am trying to show you that you're different from you. Being different from me is not a big deal.
Okay, so it's like over-identification.
Yes.
Over-involvement.
Over-involvement.
And the boundaries then are blurred. Okay.
As a justification to manage the difference.
Okay. Okay. All right. And defensiveness is a form of justification.
Yes.
You know, I did this because I wanted to show you that I have no problem.
Exactly. I did this because I want you to see that I don't have a problem with you.
All right. So a possible results. All right. That over involvement with different others is met with distrust, anger, or suspicion.
Yep.
Often called Black paranoia.
Yeah. That's the side eye. Like,
yeah. Why are you doing that for me?
What are you doing? Why are you doing all that?
Yeah.
Why are you doing all that? You're a little extra with it. What's
I didn't ask you to do that for me. What do you expect back from me in return?
And that's what happens. what are you expecting from me for doing this? Yeah.
Yep. So, and sometimes people don't think that there's anything wrong with that.
Oh, a lot of times they don't think there's anything wrong with
Okay,
it.
so it's basically a minimization of racial or ethnic problems
Yes.
when you under pathologize that kind of behavior. It's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with you for
Right.
thinking that I am overly involved or that I have blurred interpersonal boundaries?
And a lot of people will do it out of sympathy, or unconscious sympathy that they have or they're trying to show. So they
Yep.
think they're being sympathetic to the person or the cause or whatever the case may be, when that's not how
Uh-huh.
it even comes across, or maybe that's not the unconscious intent for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That pity.
Yes.
Oh,
I
I
feel
feel
sorry
so
for you.
sorry for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So stuff happens.
It does.
All right. So this is the big one for me.
Okay.
Devaluing is the
Mm,
fourth D. All
mm.
right.
Yes.
And the strategy in terms of devaluing is to maintain feelings of superiority. All right. What does it look like?
Mm.
Well, what it looks like is one's perception that difference is deviant. And we've
Mm.
already talked about that. It's
Mhm.
deviant. It's
Yep.
abnormal. No, no, no. The other manifestation is one of blaming the victim. Another manifestation would be, what's wrong with those people?
Mm.
The other is, my struggle is worse than yours.
Mm.
Or even to be with someone and pay a compliment to another person, and that someone's response is, oh yeah, they still have a lot to learn. So it's difficult to pay someone a genuine compliment without finding fault.
Right.
Pick, 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 pick.
Yeah.
This could be better, that could be better. Give the person some props for even getting out there to try and do what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but some of the possible results are intergroup or individual interactions that can be overtly hostile.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And a person could hold anger or rage about the conflict and confusion and project it onto others. That's not my anger, that's yours,
Yep.
kind of thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
this whole idea of devaluing comes up in so many instances of one holding a different different perspective or just being different,
Yeah.
right? And it's a dynamic that plays out in so many aspects of our life,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's one that I'd like to share.
Okay.
Okay.
Please.
There is a dispute in the field of psychology. There's a dispute about the PsyD and the PhD. The
Mm.
PhD being a doctor of philosophy in clinical psychology,
Okay.
which is more research oriented. All right. And then there's the PsyD, which is a doctorate in psychology, which is less research oriented, but more geared towards the practitioner scholar model.
Okay.
All right. And this has been going on for years and years, where the PhD scholars look down upon the PsyD, right? There was a professor at one of my old schools in California that used to actually do research and have publications in journals. I can't remember that man's name now, but he used to eat fish out of a long, dirty brown bag. He used to walk into parking signs, no parking, and you know, but he would do this all the time. And so what the PsyDs would do then is rally their forces to defend the PsyD. And it's like, why are you putting all of that energy? And I brought this up at a meeting, with an executive council meeting, which I was removed from. But it's like, why are you putting all of this energy into defending the PsyD program? Right? Just cite in all of your materials, in all of your APA self studies, that the PsyD is different. And this is how it's different. Period.
Yep.
Why are we defending ourselves? Like that. There's no need to do that.
Right.
And so it goes along with that more holistic view in terms of everything having value, rather than the either or mentality. Why are we fighting? Why are we fighting as melanated people that we're just as good as non-melanated people? I'm not going to engage in that fight with you. I'm going to just say I'm different, and I'm going to show you how I'm different, because I know myself
and the value that you bring.
Yeah.
But so here's another perspective on that, right?
Okay.
We will die. People will die for what they believe in. So when someone comes and devalues, talks down, and kind of ridicules what they believe in, it instantly, for the most part, triggers somebody to defend themselves. So when you devalue a people, or you devalue a person, or you devalue a religion, or anything else that you may feel different from, when you devalue it, people are going to feel that they have to stand up for it by default, right? It's just the let's say the human nature in us. We feel like our back is against the wall and we have to fight. So the amygdala is automatically triggered for us to, fight, flee, or freeze. We have to do something because it brings on a sense of danger, and then it's something that we believe in. So our belief is to the point where we're going to stand up to defend that. So devaluing is also a justification for the person who's doing the devaluing, the person who is actually devaluing someone else. It's a superiority stance as well. So I have to belittle you in order for myself to stand up and feel like I am superior.
Exactly.
And so I had this situation when I was working. The woman who was the managing supervisor over my the group that I was a part of at my job, she was very I would say sneaky about how she tried to devalue me.
Surreptitious.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. And she was in great denial about it. But she would always try to speak highly about other other people's, one particular person who looked like her freaking daughter, right? She tried to speak very highly of what she was doing, and then ignored or spoke very lowly about what I was doing.
Mhm.
So even though it wasn't directly like your program is not doing well or your program is not as good, it was still a devaluing technique that she was using to try to devalue what I did in the company of other people on our team, so that they would also look at it as what I did was not as valuable as what some other people did.
Mhm.
And I got to the point where I didn't stand up, like you said. I didn't go toe to toe with her about trying to show the value in what I did, and trying to justify my position there. But what I did was I showed receipts. See, that's where she was stuck, and I would show receipts. And so,
Tell us what you mean by receipts.
so nowadays you'll hear people say you need to show receipts. So that's basically, proof of what you've done and what you've been able to accomplish. Those are my receipts. Those are the receipts, right? And I share this with DJ too. I'll tell that. I'll get to that. But so what I would do is I would show, oh, my training class that I put together, saved the company X number of dollars, right? Oh, and then this is, every class is booked and I have a waiting list for the next 3 months. Or I would say this is what somebody was able to create after they attended one of my sessions, because this was back when I was a software trainer, right? And so those were my receipts. And so when I would show that, and I would speak from that position of strength based on what I've been able to accomplish and what I've done, she had to kind of cower down a little bit. She had to kind of take a different stance, because now she has no legitimate proof of why she's devaluing what I do. And it shed some
Mm.
light on what truly may be the reasoning behind her trying to devalue what I was doing.
Okay.
So when you're in the situation where what you're doing is being devalued, what you have to do is stand up and look at what you've been able to accomplish, and share those things with confidence, and be, really be in a situation where you feel that I can show you better than I can argue with you about it. Let me just show you these receipts. This is what we've been able to do.
All
And,
right.
and even with with melanated people, we sit here and we continue to fight and try to go tit for tat when we're being devalued, instead of saying, let me show you what we've done. We've been able to
Yeah.
do
It's
this
called
and this.
identifying with the projection.
Yes.
Somebody projects something onto you and says you're bad, you're going to fight with them about whether you're bad or you're good. It's like, oh no. So what you've done is you've taken my premise or the Southwestern's premise and added to it, rather than just saying, no, I am different. You're
Mhm.
saying, and I am different, and this is how I'm different. You're saying, I am good. I'm just
Yep.
as good as you. This is what I have done.
Yep. And this is why I feel that way. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
So I'm gonna leave this one as this, like this. So receipts nullify devaluing.
check you out. I
I'm
like that.
I'm gonna sit that right there for
Go on with your bad self. Okay. Well, I feel like we're done, but we have one more D
I
to
know. I
discover.
know. Let's get to this last.
All right. The last D is discovery. It's
Hmm.
a strategy to embrace and seek greater familiarity with differences. Okay.
Hmm.
And so, how does that look? Right? If you were to look at differences as challenges and opportunities for learning and growth, then that would be a more optimal manifestation.
Yes.
All right. if you were to just get in your head that intergroup understanding is valued, because you can know something but not bother to understand, try and understand it. And that's what this whole process of discovery is about.
Mm-hmm.
And with this process, though, it can potentially bring up some conflict, but your
Mm-hmm.
goal then is to arrive at some kind of an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
As a part of dealing with the differences.
Right.
And you often find that confronting or actually speaking and talking about differences is empowering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so what you can then have as a possible outcome is non-defensive intergroup and individual interactions.
Mm-hmm.
You might even possibly be able to resolve some of the conflicts that occur.
Mm-hmm.
And another possible outcome or result is personal growth and development. In other words, you would evolve.
Yes.
Those around you would evolve. The company that you are in or the household that you live in might possibly evolve. There's an opportunity for completion of the self.
Mm-hmm.
And every little bit helps. Okay.
Oh,
So now,
yep.
so now those are the 5 Ds in terms of managing different, how we manage differences, or why differences are so difficult for us to grapple with. The 5 Ds of difference, which are distancing, denial, defensiveness, devaluing, and then the possibility or opportunity for discovery, if you want to flip the coin, rather
Mm-hmm.
than just focusing on the differences. I mean, rather than focusing on the commonalities, it's like, let's explore these differences.
Right.
Let's see, what is this like?
Right.
Right. And
And
so we've presented strategies, manifestations, and possible outcomes.
now I just want to share one thing before we wrap up
All right,
with discovery.
please. I'm done.
Okay. So one of the things with discovery, which you can really see if you're in that space of, I really want to explore the differences, see how I can learn from the differences. One of them is when you are speaking with someone who is different than you. And I also want everybody to know, it's not just black or white. This is whatever the difference is, right? So when I'm speaking to someone, if I'm really in a state of discovery and I'm in that space, I'm listening to understand as opposed to listening to respond. So
Mm.
I am a male, you are a female, and we're having a conversation about something that's going on, and I'm trying to understand your perspective, right? And we're talking about your perspective is different than mine. So if I'm in a state of discovery, that's what I'm trying to really do. I am listening to you to understand your perspective, as opposed to I'm listening to you to respond. So if you say something, I just come back with a response real quick that justifies my side and my stance in it, as opposed to I'm listening and I'm saying, oh, I wonder why she feels this way, or I wonder what happened to make her feel that way. I'm listening to try to understand what it is that helps create that perspective that you have. So in discovery, it's just, that's just one of the things that we can look for. And even if you're having a conversation, you can see, like, you can kind of ask yourself, is this person listening to understand me, or is this person listening so they can respond? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not hearing you. I'm just waiting for you to give me a break so I can jump in and give you my response to that.
Mm-hmm.
So in that discovery, and that's something that we should do whenever we're looking to grow, is you always should be listening or reading or whatever to understand and get a better understanding of it so that you are growing personally, as opposed to, just trying to respond to whatever is being said.
Right. So you're not in the posture of just being cognitively fascinated.
Mm-hmm.
You take that deeper
Yes.
into an understanding that person's perspective, understand empathy, so that you can develop some sense of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Not sympathy, but empathy. And that's being able to see the shoes that other person is wearing. You don't have to get in those shoes. You don't have to try and make them fit,
Right.
but just understand where they're coming from.
Yep. Because
And you don't have to agree.
No. But now, if I have done that, the next time we have a conversation, or the next time we have something that comes up and we're interacting with each other, now I have a better understanding of how certain things may land on you. And so I can be conscious of how I share my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I've grown since the last time, because before I was listening and I was understanding where you were coming from. Now we can have a different conversation next time, because now I understand your perspective. Doesn't lessen mine, it doesn't lessen yours, but now I just understand. It's just like having if you have an argument with someone, I think that you should learn something from the argument. You should learn what is a trigger for that person, maybe. You should learn what is something that may be irritating to them, so that now we can move forward without having to do those things, because now I understand that this is something that may trigger you, or this may be something that bothers you. And if I'm really trying to discover the different, discover how this can be a more cohesive relationship, whatever it may be, and not really focus on the differences, I'm discovering how those differences can help me grow. Now we can have better interactions moving forward.
Okay. So now suppose that you extended that same compassion to yourself.
That's a whole nother show, Denise.
Well, it would be paying attention to what that individual said that triggered you.
True.
What that individual said that may have been so upsetting to you, or
Very
even,
true.
Understanding how it is that you're not understanding what the person is saying.
Very right. I think it goes both ways.
Exactly. And so
I think it goes both ways.
Yeah. So there we have an interaction that's viable.
Yep.
That's fruitful.
Yeah.
And there's a possibility then for both of you to grow.
What we have to understand is that there is a reason why people feel the way they feel.
Of course.
On both sides. So, with that whole understanding and the discovery part, we got to understand that that person feels the way they feel about you for a reason. Something has happened that make them feel that way. Both ways.
Yes, I agree.
Both ways. So some experience that has happened, some teaching that they had, something that they've learned, something that someone told them, the way that they were raised, whatever it is, there's a reason. Something happened to make that person feel the way that they feel. So yes, we have to have empathy.
Rather than labeling the person as ignorant, it's like, wait, what happened here? Something happened here.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
So shadow work, another episode on shadow work.
Yes. Again,
Ooh.
it's deep. There's a lot to it, a lot to unpack. I hope you've been taking notes, guys.
I have.
I have too. I have
All
too. I have
right.
notes.
Good
So
for you.
yes, so I appreciate you. Thank you. And as always, I'm learning as we're going through and doing this. I appreciate you all for joining us on another episode of PTST. Dr. Denise,
Yes.
thank you so much. You are
Go
phenomenal.
and see what you can find in your garage.
I know it's probably a lot.
Ashe.
I
Ashe.
say. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be phenomenal.